Did you know that the UK is now one of the worst performing economies in the G7? A country that was once a global financial powerhouse is now struggling with inflation, high taxes, and failing public services. But here's the real question. Why is the UK economy doing so badly? And why does it feel like things are only getting worse? Every time you go shopping, prices seem higher than before. Your paycheck? It doesn't stretch as far as it used to. Energy bills have skyrocketed. House prices are unaffordable. And even basic services like the NHS and public transport are collapsing. Some say it's Brexit. Others blame government mismanagement, rising debt, and political instability. But what if the truth is more complicated? Why are countries like Germany, Canada, and Australia thriving while the UK falls behind? In this video, we're exposing 10 shocking reasons why the UK economy is failing. Some of these reasons will surprise you, and by the end of this video, you'll understand what's really happening and whether there's any hope for a recovery. So is the UK headed for long-term decline, or can it still turn things around? Stick with us, because what we're about to reveal will make you question everything you thought you knew about the UK's economic future. Let's get started. Number 1. Persistent inflation. One of the biggest reasons the UK economy is doing surprisingly badly is the ongoing inflation crisis. Inflation has remained stubbornly high, keeping the cost of living at record-breaking levels and making everyday essentials more expensive for millions of people. Even though inflation rates have started to slow globally, the UK is still struggling, and many are wondering why. The Bank of England has repeatedly raised interest rates in an effort to control inflation, but it hasn't worked as expected. Instead of bringing prices down, mortgages, loans, and everyday expenses have become more expensive, making life even harder for middle-class and low-income households. Food prices, energy bills, and transportation costs have all surged, with some essentials costing up to 20% more than they did just a couple of years ago. For example, staple foods like bread, milk, and meat have seen dramatic price increases, forcing families to cut back on even the basics. What's causing this inflation crisis? A mix of factors. Post-pandemic supply chain disruptions that have increased the cost of goods. The energy crisis, which has pushed up gas and electricity bills. Brexit-related trade barriers, making imports more expensive. Weak currency performance, making it costlier to buy goods from abroad. The result? Wages aren't keeping up, and people's spending power has been crushed. If inflation continues to stay high while wages remain stagnant, the UK economy will remain weak. Other countries have managed to bring inflation under control more effectively, leaving many wondering why the UK is lagging behind. Without urgent reforms, the cost of living crisis will continue to weigh down the entire economy. Number 2. Declining real wages. One of the most frustrating issues for UK workers is that even when they get a pay raise, it doesn't feel like one. That's because real wages, which measure how much your earnings are worth after adjusting for inflation, have been falling for years. As a result, people are working just as hard, or even harder, but can afford less than they could a few years ago. Why is this happening? The simple reason is that inflation is rising faster than wages. While some industries have seen small salary increases, they haven't kept up with the soaring prices of food, rent, and energy. According to the Office for National Statistics, real wages in the UK have been declining since 2021, meaning that even though people might be earning more on paper, their actual purchasing power has dropped. This shrinking pay gap is hitting middle-class and low-income households the hardest. Many families are now forced to make tough financial choices, cutting back on essentials, dipping into savings, or even going into debt just to keep up with daily expenses. Workers in healthcare, education, retail, and hospitality have been particularly affected, as these industries have seen some of the slowest wage growth. Meanwhile, other countries have seen real wage growth outpace inflation, allowing workers to maintain or even improve their standard of living. Germany, Canada, and Australia have implemented policies to protect wages and control inflation better than the UK. This is why many skilled workers are now considering moving abroad, where their salaries will go further. If the UK can't reverse this trend, consumer spending will continue to drop, businesses will struggle, and the economy will remain in a weakened state. For many, the question is simple. Why stay in the UK if wages don't keep up with living costs? Number 3. High interest rates and mortgage crisis. For many people in the UK, owning a home has become a financial nightmare. With interest rates at their highest levels in over a decade, mortgage payments have skyrocketed, pushing homeowners and potential buyers into serious financial strain. The result? Fewer people can afford to buy homes, and those who already own one are struggling to keep up with their repayments. Why are interest rates so high? The Bank of England has raised interest rates multiple times to try and control rising inflation, but this has had serious side effects. Higher interest rates make borrowing money more expensive, and for homeowners, that means monthly mortgage payments have surged by hundreds or even thousands of pounds. For example, a homeowner who took out a £250,000 mortgage at 2% interest a few years ago might now be facing a rate of 6% or more, doubling their monthly repayments. For many, this has meant cutting back on essentials, struggling to make ends meet, or even facing the risk of losing their homes. For first-time buyers, the situation is even worse. House prices in the UK remain extremely high, and with mortgage rates soaring, fewer people can afford to take the plunge into home ownership. The average house price is now over £300,000, and with interest rates so high, mortgage approvals have plummeted. Many young professionals are giving up on the idea of ever owning a home. Meanwhile, countries like Germany, Canada, and Australia offer more affordable housing markets and lower mortgage costs, making them attractive options for people looking to escape the UK's housing crisis. If interest rates remain high while wages stagnate, the UK's property market could face a serious downturn, worsening the already fragile economy. Number 4. The energy price crisis. One of the biggest reasons the UK economy is struggling is the ongoing energy price crisis. For the past few years, gas and electricity prices have soared, putting immense financial pressure on households and businesses alike. Even though global energy prices have started to stabilise, UK consumers are still paying some of the highest bills in Europe. But why? The UK's dependence on imported energy is a major issue. Unlike countries that have invested heavily in renewable energy or domestic energy production, the UK imports a significant portion of its gas and electricity, leaving it vulnerable to global market fluctuations. The war in Ukraine sent shockwaves through the global energy market, and the UK, without enough domestic production, was hit harder than many other countries. As a result, households are paying hundreds more per year in energy costs compared to just a few years ago. Government subsidies and price caps have helped a little, but many families are still being forced to cut back on heating, electricity, and other essentials just to afford their bills. This leads to reduced consumer spending, which slows down the economy even further. Businesses are also feeling the impact. Factories, restaurants, and small businesses rely heavily on affordable energy, but with prices so high, many are being forced to shut down or increase prices, further fueling inflation. This creates a domino effect. Higher costs for businesses mean higher prices for consumers, worsening the overall economic situation. Countries like France and Norway, which have stronger renewable energy programs and better energy security, have managed to keep prices lower for their citizens. If the UK doesn't invest in long-term energy solutions, high prices will continue to drag down economic growth, hurt businesses, and push more people into financial hardship. Number 5. Brexit's lasting economic damage. Brexit was meant to give the UK more control over its economy, trade, and immigration policies. But years after leaving the European Union, the UK is still struggling with the economic fallout, and it's one of the key reasons why the economy is performing surprisingly badly. Instead of gaining financial independence, Brexit has created trade barriers, worsened labour shortages, and driven away investment. One of the biggest issues? Trade disruptions. Before Brexit, the UK had frictionless access to the EU's single market, allowing businesses to import and export goods quickly and cheaply. Now, businesses face increased tariffs, customs delays, and extra paperwork, making it more expensive and complicated to trade with Europe. Small and medium-sized businesses have been hit the hardest, with many struggling to stay competitive. Foreign investment has also taken a hit. Many international companies used to see the UK as a gateway to Europe. But now that Brexit has cut off easy access to the EU market, major businesses have relocated to countries like Germany, France, and the Netherlands. This means fewer jobs, less economic growth, and a decline in the UK's influence on the global stage. Labour shortages are another major problem. Many industries, from healthcare to hospitality, relied heavily on EU workers. But with tighter immigration laws, fewer skilled workers are coming to the UK, leading to staff shortages and slower economic growth. Many businesses are struggling to find employees, which forces them to reduce operations or increase wages, further pushing up prices for consumers. Countries like Germany and Ireland, still within the EU, are benefiting from Brexit at the UK's expense. Without serious reforms to trade and immigration policies, the UK risks falling further behind its European neighbours, both economically and politically. Number 6. Workforce shortages and job market instability. A strong economy depends on a stable and skilled workforce, but in the UK, worker shortages and job instability are creating serious economic problems. Across multiple industries, businesses are struggling to find employees, while many workers are stuck in low-paying, insecure jobs. This combination is slowing down economic growth and making the UK a less attractive place to work and do business. Why is there a worker shortage? One of the biggest reasons is Brexit's impact on immigration. Before leaving the EU, the UK relied on a steady flow of skilled and unskilled workers from Europe to fill essential roles in healthcare, hospitality, agriculture, and construction. But now, with stricter immigration rules, many of these positions remain unfilled, leading to staff shortages, longer wait times for services, and reduced productivity. Another issue is job market instability. The rise of zero-hour contracts, gig economy jobs, and temporary work has left many workers with little job security, low wages, and no benefits. Nurses, teachers, retail workers, and delivery drivers are among those struggling with unpredictable incomes and increasing workloads. This has led to widespread dissatisfaction, with many skilled professionals considering leaving the UK for countries with better work conditions and wages. Businesses are suffering too. Without enough workers, restaurants, hotels, hospitals, and manufacturing plants are reducing hours, limiting services, or even shutting down. This slows down economic growth and discourages foreign investment. Countries like Canada and Australia are actively recruiting skilled workers by offering higher wages, better job security, and easier immigration processes. If the UK doesn't fix its labour market crisis, it risks losing more talent to countries that provide better job opportunities and economic stability. Number 7. Government debt and poor spending decisions. The UK is drowning in record-high government debt, and poor spending decisions are making the situation even worse. With a national debt now exceeding £2.5 trillion, the country is struggling to manage interest payments, invest in public services, and support economic growth. Instead of finding long-term solutions, the government keeps borrowing more money, pushing the UK further into financial trouble. Why is UK debt so high? Several factors have contributed to this crisis. COVID-19 spending. Billions were spent on furlough schemes and business bailouts, leaving a massive hole in public finances. Energy subsidies. The government had to step in to cap energy bills, but this cost the economy billions. Brexit costs. Trade disruptions and new administrative costs have reduced economic output and tax revenues. High interest rates. Rising interest rates mean the government is paying more just to service its existing debt, leaving less money for other priorities. Public services are suffering. Despite high taxes, schools, the NHS, and public transport are all underfunded. Many people feel they are paying more but getting less in return, leading to frustration and growing dissatisfaction with government policies. Cuts to public spending mean that hospitals, police forces, and local councils are struggling to operate effectively. How does this impact the economy? Less money for investment in infrastructure, innovation, and job creation. Lower business confidence as companies worry about the UK's long-term financial health. A weaker currency, making imports more expensive and worsening inflation. Countries like Germany and Sweden have managed their public finances better, allowing for more stability. If the UK doesn't find a way to control its debt while supporting economic growth, it risks falling further behind on the global stage. Number 8. Failing public services and NHS crisis. The UK's public services are collapsing and the NHS is at breaking point. Despite high taxes, many people feel they are paying more but receiving less in return, leading to frustration and declining trust in the system. Underfunding, staff shortages, and mismanagement have made essential services like healthcare, transport, and education worse than ever. The NHS is struggling like never before. Once a world-class healthcare system, the NHS is now overwhelmed with record-high patient backlogs, understaffed hospitals, and long wait times. More than 7 million people are on NHS waiting lists, with some waiting months or even years for treatments and surgeries. Ambulance response times have doubled, and A and E departments are overcrowded, leaving patients without timely care. At the same time, doctors and nurses are leaving the UK for countries like Australia and Canada, where they receive better pay and working conditions. This has created a vicious cycle. Fewer staff means worse service, and worse service drives more staff away. Other public services are in decline too. Public transport is unreliable and expensive, with frequent train strikes and rising fares. Schools are underfunded, with teachers quitting due to poor salaries and overwhelming workloads. Police forces are understaffed, leading to slower response times and rising crime. In contrast, countries like Germany and the Netherlands have better funded healthcare and social services, leading to a higher quality of life. If the UK government fails to fix its broken public services, more skilled professionals will leave, worsening the crisis. Without urgent reforms, the UK risks becoming a high-tax, low-service economy, leaving many people wondering if it's worth staying at all. Number 9. Political instability and economic uncertainty. The UK has been caught in a cycle of political chaos, and it's taking a serious toll on the economy. In just a few years, the country has seen multiple prime ministers, constant policy changes, and growing public frustration, leaving businesses and investors unsure about the future. Without stability, economic recovery becomes nearly impossible. Frequent leadership changes create uncertainty. Since 2016, the UK has had 5 different prime ministers, each with different policies on taxes, public spending, and economic growth. Every time a new government takes over, businesses and investors are forced to adjust to new regulations and economic plans, creating instability. For example, the Liz Truss mini-budget disaster in 2022 caused market panic, a crash in the pound, and rising mortgage rates, all within a few weeks. Businesses are losing confidence. Foreign investors are pulling back, unsure of the UK's long-term economic strategy. Small businesses struggle with unpredictable tax policies and rising costs. Lack of direction in major industries like energy, tech, and manufacturing is slowing innovation. Public dissatisfaction is at an all-time high. Strikes, protests, and demonstrations are becoming more common, with workers demanding better pay and working conditions. The government's failure to address key issues, such as the NHS crisis, cost of living, and Brexit fallout, is making people lose faith in the system. Meanwhile, countries like Germany and Canada have more stable governments, long-term economic planning, and better investor confidence. If the UK can't restore political stability, the economy will continue to suffer, leading more businesses, investors, and skilled workers to leave the country. Without trust in leadership, how can the UK expect to move forward? Number 10. Declining global competitiveness. The UK was once a global economic powerhouse, but today it's losing its competitive edge. While other nations are investing in innovation, technology, and trade, the UK is falling behind, making it less attractive for businesses, investors, and skilled workers. If this trend continues, the UK risks becoming an economic afterthought on the world stage. Why is the UK losing its competitive edge? Lack of investment in key industries. Countries like Germany, the US, and China are heavily investing in technology, AI, and green energy, while the UK has failed to keep up. Without innovation, industries struggle to grow and job opportunities decline. Brexit has isolated the UK from major markets. Before Brexit, the UK was a hub for international trade. Now, with added tariffs, supply chain disruptions, and labour shortages, businesses are choosing to relocate to EU countries instead. Brain drain. Skilled workers are leaving. Talented professionals in healthcare, finance, and engineering are moving to places like Canada, Australia, and Germany, where they receive higher salaries, better job security, and a stronger economy. Falling foreign investment. Before Brexit, the UK was a top destination for global companies. Now, companies are moving their headquarters elsewhere, looking for more stable markets with better trade access and lower costs. What's the impact? Fewer high-paying jobs, leading to slower wage growth. Less innovation, making the UK economy weaker in the long run. Higher reliance on imports, driving up inflation and living costs. Unless the UK takes bold steps to rebuild its economic strength, it risks falling further behind while other nations continue to grow and prosper. The question is, can the UK turn things around before it's too late? So there you have it, 10 major reasons why the UK economy is struggling more than ever. From skyrocketing inflation and failing public services, to Brexit's long-term effects and declining global competitiveness, it's clear that the UK is facing serious economic challenges. But the big question remains, can the UK recover, or is this the new reality? Some believe the right policies and investments can turn things around, while others think the decline is irreversible. What do you think? Are these issues temporary setbacks or signs of a deeper problem? Maybe you've personally felt the impact. Higher rent, lower wages, or struggling to get a doctor's appointment. Let us know in the comments. What's been the biggest financial challenge for you? Have you considered leaving the UK for better opportunities elsewhere? We put a lot of effort into bringing you these insights. So if you found this video valuable, hit that like button and subscribe. It's just one click, but it helps us keep making content like this.